The first episode of Season 2 of Foundation most certainly had a lot of ambiguity about it, but one thing that was extremely interesting to follow was all that went on with Hari Seldon. Having always been a controversial figure, this episode highlighted that controversy and painted him out as somebody that could potentially cause trouble moving forward. Within this video, I'm going to be discussing Seldon and answering how we ended up at a point where Hari Seldon was inside of the Prime Radiant and there now being two versions of him that exist. So let's get into it. Here is Foundation Season 2, Hari Seldon Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Oh, and if you enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe. Thanks. Who is Hari Seldon? Hari Seldon is an individual from Helicon, but we met him first in Season 1 when he was the Professor of Probability Theory on Trantor. Seldon is most well known for creating psychohistory, which was something that essentially meant that the behavior of the population could be predicted if there was a large enough subject group. This is something that Seldon did with the galaxy, and he saw that the Empire was set to fall and was on a pathway to destruction. He predicted that the galaxy would be plunged into darkness for around 30,000 years following a war of the Empire taking place, something which was described as the Fall. With this being predicted, the Empire became aware of it, along with the psychohistory that Seldon spoke of and the fact that he proposed to set up the Foundation, which looked to keep the knowledge that the species and galaxy had acquired intact, and would be able to start a new civilization when the time came to arise again. However, the Genetic Dynasty Empire did not agree with Seldon and his beliefs. They thought that he was some kind of alternative, power-hungry individual that would look to set up an uprising, which would in turn cause the Empire to have competition and a new threat. This meant that he was exiled to Terminus along with Gale in order to set up his foundation. And if the Dark Ages eventually looked as though they were going to be brought upon the Empire, then Brother Day and the other brothers would look for his support and make it out like they were in fact some kind of saviors. When Seldon, Gale, and the rest of the people that were going to be settling down on Terminus were on their voyage, we saw that Seldon was killed by his adoptive son Raish, which was where the true complexity surrounding the character began, and the hero, godlike status that he held started to come to fruition. Within Season 2 Episode 1 of the show, we also got a glimpse into Seldon's childhood, and we saw that his mother Fariel was encouraging of the work that he was doing, and the intrigue that he had when it came to mathematics. But his father Nolan, however, was not. He looked as though he had some kind of abusive trait within him, so that could well be a contributing factor as to why Seldon is the way that he is in the present day, in terms of the harsher, more blunt side of his personality, because of what he experienced as a child. Why are there two versions of Seldon? Well, within Season 1 of the show, prior to us even knowing that there were multiple versions of Hari Seldon that were out there, we saw that Hari was killed by his foster son Raish. This was something that at the time, it was a bit of a shock, but it did feel like something larger was going to come of it, and well, that's an understatement, as it most certainly did. So there's a version of Seldon inside of the Prime Radiant and also a version that's within the vault. Let's start with the Prime Radiant version. When Raish killed Hari Seldon, it essentially triggered a neural uplink to take place between the real-life Hari Seldon and the digitized version of the character that was present on the Raven ship. This was something that was possible due to the quantum consciousness protocol. The version of Seldon that was now present on the Raven had all of his memories up until the point that he died, and it was just a complete clone and replica of the version that we once knew and saw. Whilst in this digitized form on the ship, he was baffled to learn of the events that he predicted to happen hadn't gone as they'd planned. It was originally supposed to be Raish that went on board the Raven and continued to work on the plan that he'd carried out. And Gale was supposed to go to Terminus, where she was supposed to lead the Foundation. But none of that happened, as Raish sent Gale down and he was long dead by that point as he was executed for the murder of Seldon. Seldon had a terminal illness and was destined to meet his death far sooner than he had ever anticipated. Hence why the digitization process was a key thing for him to carry out. He knew that in order for the Foundation to flourish and thrive when it was eventually created, there needed to be a hero, a leader in memory, and a godlike figure that would be able to be the face of the Foundation, and an individual that birthed the viewpoint and would give the citizens a purpose and reason to follow it. Hence why he spoke to Raish and got him to kill him, allowing his memory and name to be that very thing. He didn't want Raish and Gale to be together, because if they were, then the plan that he had in place would not have happened. Hence why he ultimately got Raish to kill him, instead of him just doing it himself like was originally planned. He knew that Raish wouldn't leave Gale, and that the plan would have failed and his death would have ultimately been for nothing. Whereas with Seldon being killed by Raish, it forced him into a situation where he needed to act, as he wouldn't have been able to stay on board the ship and be safe. With Gale being against the controlling nature of Seldon and the fact that he was starting to doubt her loyalty due to the abilities that she held, instead of going to his home planet like he wanted them to do, she instead embarked on a journey back to Synnax. This in turn meant that this digitized copy of Seldon's consciousness was trapped in a state of nothingness. Hence why we saw in Season 2 Episode 1 where he was kind of going crazy, trapped in darkness. This was due to the fact that he was trapped inside of the Prime Radiant by Gale when she left the Raven and embarked on her journey back to Synnax. Hence why she felt like they weren't on the best of terms, because of everything that happened before. The second version of Seldon is this other consciousness copy that is present on the vault on the planet Terminus. This version of Seldon first became present towards the end of the first season. When Hari Seldon was killed, prior to his death, he took a tablet that contained self-replication molecular machines. And when Hari was inside of his casket and left in space, the process then took place, and the effects were seen. The casket essentially broke down and started to form the structure of the vault, and his body was also broken down too. Whilst Hari's consciousness was inside of the vault, it was essentially not activated. However, the attack that took place was what ultimately triggered the consciousness to be awoken. So Hari's meticulous planning long before his death is the reason as to why there are now two versions of Hari Seldon that are present in the galaxy. One on Terminus and one currently on board the Beggar along with Salvor and Gale following him breaking out of the Prime Radiant. It does make me wonder if he's going to go back to Terminus with Gale and Salvor, or if now that he's awake inside of the ship he may want to go back to Helicon in order to teach Gale more about her abilities and to continue with what he originally set out to do, as there's definitely some unfinished business there. Theories on what could happen to Seldon. Within episode 1 of season 2, we saw the importance that was shown to us with the Prime Radiant and the fact that the timeline that Seldon predicted was so far drifted away from now. It seemed as though the galaxy was on track to have another crisis that was instead going to be leading on to many others that were also going to be taking place immediately after. I think this is going to tie into Gale's abilities and the fact that she can see into the future slightly. I think Hari Seldon will be able to persuade Gale to go to Helicon so they can work on her abilities, so that she'll then be able to work out and see a way in which the second crisis could be prevented or be stopped. I think both Gale and Seldon will repair the damaged relationship, as realistically, if they want to be able to stop the galaxy from being plunged into darkness, they need to put their differences aside. Hari Seldon is a particularly interesting character, and is an individual that I'm looking forward to seeing develop more as this season carries on. Jared Harris always delivers a phenomenally good performance of this character, and I can't wait to see his range yet again. What did you think of episode 1? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.